The morning Marta told me I was sexually adequate at best over breakfast. I should have known she was warming up for something bigger, but I was too busy buttering my toast and pretending her words didn't hit like a sledgehammer to my gut. "I'm just being honest, David," she said, not looking up from her phone. "Honesty is important in a marriage." Marta Monroe, my wife of 23 years, sat across from me in our pristine kitchen, her blonde hair perfectly styled even at 7 in the morning. She worked as a creative director at Pinnacle Marketing, which meant she knew exactly how to package cruelty in appealing wrapping paper. "Right," I said, taking a bite of toast. "Honesty, got it. I'm David Monroe, 47 years old, certified public accountant, and apparently sexually adequate at best. I've spent 2 decades managing the books for mid-sized companies, finding discrepancies in spreadsheets, and making sure numbers add up. What I hadn't noticed was how the numbers in my own marriage had stopped adding up years ago. Greg thinks we should host the agency's summer party this year," Marta continued, scrolling through her messages. "It would be good for my career." Greg Waters, Marta's business partner, old money trust fund baby who drove a vintage Porsche and wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. Everything about Greg screamed entitled rich boy who'd never worked a real day in his life. "Sure," I said. "Whatever helps your career." Marta finally looked up, her green eyes studying me with the same expression she used when reviewing disappointing ad campaigns. "You know what your problem is, David? You're too passive. You just accept everything." "Maybe that's why we work," I replied. "Someone has to be the reasonable one." She laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Reasonable, right. That's definitely the word I'd use." Our daughter Amelia walked into the kitchen, 20 years old and sharp as a tack. She had Marta's looks, but thankfully my personality. She grabbed an apple from the counter and kissed my cheek. "Morning, Dad. Mom." The temperature difference in her greetings was noticeable. "Honey, you should come to the party next weekend," Marta said. "Bring that boy you're seeing. His name is Marcus, and we broke up 2 weeks ago." Amelia shot me a look that said, "Can you believe her?" "Oh, well, bring someone else then. It's important to network." Amelia just shook her head and headed for the door. "See you later, Dad. Have a good day at work." After she left, the kitchen felt smaller, somehow. Marta went back to her phone, and I finished my breakfast in silence. This was our routine now, polite distance punctuated by small cruelties. My phone buzzed with a text from my friend Trent. "Beer tonight? You look like you need it." Trent Morrison was my oldest friend, an ex-cop turned security consultant who had an uncanny ability to read people's moods from across a room. We'd known each other since college, back when I thought I'd marry my high school sweetheart, and Marta was just some beautiful girl in my economics class. I texted back, "Definitely. Murphy's at 7? See you there. And Dave, bring your sense of humor. You're gonna need it." The thing about Trent was that he saw everything. He'd been watching my marriage crumble for years, making increasingly pointed comments about Marta's behavior. I'd always brushed him off, made excuses, played the loyal husband, but lately, even I was running out of excuses. That evening at Murphy's Tavern, Trent was already 3 beers in when I arrived. He looked up from his phone and grinned. There he is, the most patient man in Minneapolis. Patient or stupid? I slid into the booth across from him. "Jury's still out." He signaled the waitress for another round. "So what fresh hell did Princess Marta put you through today?" I told him about the breakfast conversation, about the party, about the general sense that I was slowly disappearing in my own house. Trent listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. You know what your problem is?" he said finally. "I'm too passive. I accept everything." Yeah, I got that lecture this morning." "No, your problem is you think being a good guy means being a doormat." He leaned forward. "Dave, I've been watching this train wreck for years. When's the last time Marta said something nice about you? When's the last time she seemed happy to see you walk through the door?" I started to answer, then realized I couldn't. "Not recently, not for a long time." "She's working late a lot lately," I said instead. Working late?" Trent's expression darkened. "With Greg, I assume?" "They're partners. They have a big campaign coming up." "Right. And I'm sure all those late-night strategy sessions require her to come home smelling like expensive cologne." I stared at him. "What are you saying?" I'm saying you're a smart guy who's been willfully blind for too long." He pulled out his phone. "Remember my friend Lila, the one who used to be a journalist, the private investigator? The very same. One phone call, Dave. That's all it would take to know for sure." I shook my head. I can't. That's crossing a line. The line was crossed a long time ago, buddy. You just weren't the one who crossed it. We sat in silence for a while, nursing our beers and watching the baseball game on the TV above the bar. But Trent's words echoed in my head. The late nights, the new clothes, the way Marta's face lit up when Greg called, compared to the barely concealed irritation when I walked into a room. One phone call, Trent said again as we were leaving. Just think about it. 3 days later, I made the call. Lila Stein met me at a coffee shop downtown. A no-nonsense woman in her 40s, with sharp eyes and prematurely gray hair. She'd been an investigative journalist before switching to private investigation. And she had the kind of direct manner that made you trust her immediately. Trent filled me in on the basics, she said, sliding a business card across the table. Suspected affair, need confirmation, standard surveillance package. My rate is $200 a day plus expenses. That seems reasonable. It is. I don't pad the bills, and I don't drag things out. If your wife is cheating, I'll have proof within a week. If she's not, you'll know that too. And if she is, Lila's expression softened slightly. Then we'll document everything properly. Photos, times, locations. Enough for your lawyer to work with, if it comes to that. I signed the contract with shaking hands. 23 years of marriage, and it had come to this. Hiring a private investigator to spy on my own wife. One more thing, Lila said as we stood to leave. Don't change your routine. Don't act suspicious. Don't confront her, no matter what you think you know. Let me do my job. The next few days were torture. I went to work, came home, made small talk with Marta, all while knowing that somewhere across town, Lila was following my wife around with a camera. Every time Marta's phone buzzed, every time she smiled at a text message, I wondered if this was the moment Lila was documenting. Thursday night, Marta announced she'd be working late again. Big presentation tomorrow, she said, checking her appearance in the hallway mirror. Greg and I need to run through it one more time. At the office? His place. He has better presentation equipment. She kissed my cheek absently. Don't wait up. After she left, I sat in my living room staring at the TV without seeing it. My phone rang at 10:30. It's Lila. We need to meet. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in her car outside a 24-hour diner, looking at photographs that made my stomach turn. Marta and Greg entering his downtown loft. Marta and Greg on his balcony, sharing a bottle of wine. Marta and Greg kissing like teenagers, while the city lights twinkled behind them. I'm sorry, David, Lila said quietly. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear. How long? My voice sounded strange, distant. Based on what I've observed, at least 6 months, probably longer. She handed me a manila envelope. Everything's in here. Photos, timeline, locations. If you decide to file for divorce, this should be more than enough. I stared at the envelope like it might bite me. What happens now? That's up to you. Some people confront immediately. Some people plan. Some people try counseling. Though in my experience, when someone goes to this much trouble to deceive you, the marriage is already over. I drove home in a daze, the envelope burning like a coal in my passenger seat. Marta's car wasn't in the driveway yet. I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd called me sexually adequate, and tried to figure out how I felt. Hurt, obviously. Angry, definitely. But underneath those expected emotions was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. For months, I'd been questioning my own perceptions, wondering if I was imagining the distance between us. Now I knew. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was just married to a woman who'd decided I wasn't enough. Marta came home at midnight, humming softly to herself. She seemed genuinely surprised to find me still awake. How was the presentation? I asked. Good, really good. Greg thinks the client will love it. She poured herself a glass of water. You should get some sleep. You look tired. Yeah, long day. She headed upstairs, and I heard the shower running a few minutes later, washing off Greg's cologne, probably. The thought made me feel sick. I called Trent. It's midnight, he answered. This better be good. You were right. A pause. Hell, I'm sorry, Dave. I really am. What do I do now? Now you stop being the nice guy and start being the smart guy. How much evidence do you have? Enough. Good. Don't do anything stupid. Don't confront her yet. Think strategically. You've got the advantage now, because she doesn't know you know. I want to make her pay, Trent. I want her to feel what I'm feeling right now. I get it. But revenge is a dish best served cold, remember? Take some time, plan it out. Make sure when you do act, it counts. After we hung up, I sat in my dark kitchen until dawn, thinking about 23 years of marriage, about trust and betrayal, about the difference between being nice and being respected. By the time Marta came downstairs for breakfast, I had made my decision. The nice guy was officially dead. The plan came together over the next 2 weeks, with the methodical precision I usually reserved for quarterly tax reports. Trent was right about one thing. Revenge was definitely better when properly planned. Step 1 was gathering allies. Amelia was home for summer break, and she'd noticed the tension between her parents long before I had. "Dad, can I ask you something?" she said one evening while Marta was at another late meeting. We were sitting on the back porch, sharing a beer and watching the sunset. "Sure, sweetheart. Are you and Mom getting divorced?" I nearly choked on my beer. "What makes you ask that? She treats you like garbage, Dad. Has for years. And lately," she shrugged. "I don't know. Something's different. She's different." I looked at my daughter, this smart, observant young woman who'd inherited the best parts of both her parents, and made another decision. "Your mother is having an affair," I said quietly. Amelia was quiet for a long moment. Then, "With Greg? How did you know?" "The way she talks about him. The way her whole face changes when he calls. Plus, he's a creep. Remember at Christmas when he kept commenting on my appearance? Made my skin crawl." We sat in silence, processing this new dynamic between us. Father and daughter, allies against betrayal. "What are you going to do?" she asked finally. "I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who your mother really is." Step 2 was the agency's summer party, which Marta had been planning for weeks. She'd turned our backyard into something out of a magazine, with string lights and catered food and a full bar. All of her colleagues would be there, along with clients and neighbors. "This is important for my career, David," she'd said while directing the caterers. "Please try not to embarrass me." "Wouldn't dream of it," I replied. What Marta didn't know was that Trent had installed a small wireless camera in Greg's Porsche the week before, along with a GPS tracker. What she also didn't know was that Lila had been documenting every one of their meetings, building a comprehensive timeline of their affair. The party was scheduled for Saturday evening. Friday afternoon, I received a package from Lila containing everything we'd need: photos, videos, a detailed report of every hotel room, every restaurant, every lie Marta had told to cover her tracks. "You sure about this?" Trent asked. He'd come over early to help me set up the surprise I had planned for the party. "She wanted honesty in our marriage," I said, connecting my laptop to the outdoor projector screen Marta had rented for a slideshow of company achievements. "I'm going to give her more honesty than she can handle." The party started at 7. By 7:30, our backyard was full of Marta's colleagues, clients, and friends. Greg arrived fashionably late in his Porsche, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. He worked the crowd like a politician, charming everyone with stories and jokes. Marta was in her element, playing the perfect hostess, introducing people, and making sure everyone had drinks. She looked beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. This was the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago, before ambition and entitlement had rotted her from the inside. At 8 o'clock, Greg called for everyone's attention. He was going to give a toast to the agency's success, followed by the slideshow of their recent campaigns. "Ladies and gentlemen," Greg began, raising his champagne glass. "Tonight we celebrate not just our professional achievements, but the partnerships that make them possible. To Pinnacle Marketing, and to the beautiful, talented woman who makes our success possible, Marta Monroe." Everyone raised their glasses. Marta beamed, basking in the attention. This was her moment, her triumph, which made what happened next even more perfect. Instead of the expected slideshow of advertising campaigns, the screen lit up with a photo of Greg and Marta kissing on his balcony. The crowd fell silent, glasses frozen halfway to their lips. The next slide was a timestamp showing the photo was taken 3 weeks ago, at 11:47 p.m. The slide after that showed text messages between them, discussing where to meet and how to avoid being seen. "What the hell?" Greg started toward the projector, but Trent stepped casually into his path. "I wouldn't," Trent said mildly. "Show's just getting started." More photos flashed on the screen. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills charged to the company credit card. A video of them entering a motel room together, shot through Lila's telephoto lens. Marta's face had gone completely white. "David, stop this," Stop this right now. Stop what? I asked innocently. You said honesty was important in a marriage. I'm just being honest. The final slide was a timeline showing every lie she'd told me over the past 6 months, cross-referenced with where she'd actually been. Late meetings that were actually dinner dates, weekend work sessions that were actually romantic getaways, business trips that Greg had also mysteriously needed to take. And the silence in our backyard was deafening. 50 of Marta's colleagues, clients, and friends stood frozen, staring at the evidence of her betrayal projected in high definition against our garage wall. You bastard, Marta hissed, advancing on me with fury in her eyes. How dare you humiliate me like this? Humiliate you? I laughed, and it felt good. Sweetheart, you humiliated yourself. I just provided the documentation. Greg finally found his voice. This is illegal. You can't spy on people like this. Actually, Trent said, pulling out his phone, everything here was obtained legally. Public spaces, no expectation of privacy, all that good stuff. I used to be a cop, remember? The crowd began to murmur, then talk, then gossip openly. I watched as Marta's carefully constructed professional image crumbled in real time. Clients looked disgusted. Colleagues whispered behind their hands. The neighbors who'd always thought Marta was so sophisticated and successful now saw her for what she really was. The party's over, I announced. Thanks for coming, everyone. Drive safely. People began filing out, but slowly, reluctant to miss any more drama. Greg grabbed Marta's arm and tried to pull her toward his car, but she shook him off. Don't touch me, she snapped. This is your fault. If you hadn't pushed for this stupid party, my fault? Greg's carefully maintained composure finally cracked. You're the one who's married. You're the one who said you could handle the situation. And there it was, the final nail in the coffin. Even in crisis, they were turning on each other. As the last guests left, Marta stood alone in our backyard, surrounded by the ruins of her party and her reputation. She looked at me with pure hatred. I'll destroy you for this, she said. With what? I replied. Your credibility? Your professional reputation? Your moral authority? I shook my head. You've got nothing left to destroy me with, Marta. That's the beautiful part. She stormed into the house, and I heard her car start a few minutes later. Trent helped me clean up the projector equipment, while we listened to her tires screech out of the driveway. Feel better? He asked. Getting there, I said. But we're not done yet. Monday morning, I was sitting in the office of Patricia Patel, the best divorce attorney in Minneapolis. She was a small woman, with steel gray hair and the kind of sharp intelligence that made opposing lawyers nervous. This is quite comprehensive, she said, reviewing Lila's report. Your wife made this very easy for us. The affair is well documented. The financial improprieties are clear, and the timeline shows a pattern of deception. Financial improprieties? The hotel bills and restaurant charges on the company credit card. If she was using business funds for personal affairs, that's embezzlement. Her business partner, too, if he was involved in authorizing the expenses. I hadn't even thought of that angle. What does that mean for the divorce? It means you're going to come out of this very well. Minnesota is a no-fault state, but adultery and financial misconduct still matter when it comes to asset division. Plus, if there are criminal charges, she shrugged. Let's just say your wife is going to need her own lawyer very soon. By Wednesday, Marta had moved out of the house and into a downtown apartment. She'd also hired Robert Armitage, an expensive lawyer with a reputation for playing dirty. But even dirty lawyers need facts to work with, and the facts were not on Marta's side. Thursday morning, I got a call from my bank. Mr. Monroe, this is Janet from First National. We've had someone trying to access your accounts using forged documents. We wanted to verify with you before we called the police. Forged documents? A withdrawal slip with your signature, but our handwriting analysis software flagged it as suspicious. The person claimed to be your wife, but she didn't have proper authorization for the account. I closed my eyes. Call the police, and thank you for catching that. Marta was getting desperate. Good. That evening, Amelia called from her summer job at a local restaurant. Dad, you need to know something. Mom came by my work today. What did she want? She wanted me to talk to you, to tell you she was sorry and that you should give her another chance. Amelia's voice was tight with anger. She actually tried to blame you, said you'd been distant and cold, and that's why she needed someone else. What did you tell her? I told her that cheating was a choice, not a consequence, and that if she'd wanted to save her marriage, She should have tried talking to her husband instead of sleeping with his replacement. Oh. I'd never been prouder of my daughter. Friday brought another call from Patricia Patel. The police have arrested your wife, she said without preamble. The forged bank documents, plus evidence of the embezzlement we discussed. She's been charged with fraud and theft. Jesus, it gets better. Greg Waters was arrested too. Apparently they've been using company funds for their affair for months. Hotels, restaurants, even a weekend trip to Chicago that was supposedly a business conference. I sat down heavily. I'd wanted to hurt Marta, to make her pay for what she'd done to our marriage, but I hadn't expected it to go this far. What happens now? Now they both face criminal charges, civil lawsuits from their business partners, and complete professional ruin. Your wife's career is over, David. So is his. That weekend, Amelia came home to help me sort through Marta's things. We worked in silence mostly, packing clothes and personal items into boxes. Do you think she'll go to prison? Amelia asked. I don't know. Maybe. Probably not for long, if at all. First offense, good lawyers. I folded one of Marta's expensive blouses, but her life as she knew it is over. Good, Amelia said fiercely. She made her choices. Sunday evening, my phone rang. Marta's number. David, please, I need to talk to you. Her voice was small, broken. Nothing like the confident woman who'd called me sexually adequate just a few weeks ago. We can talk through our lawyers, I said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. You never meant to get caught. That's not... Please, David. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can... Marta, I interrupted. You didn't just hurt me. You humiliated me. For months. Every time you came home from being with him. Every time you lied to my face. Every time you made me feel like I was crazy for noticing something was wrong. You destroyed our marriage piece by piece, and now you want to fix it because you got caught? Silence on the other end. The divorce papers will be ready next week, I continued. Sign them. Don't fight me on this. It'll be easier for everyone, especially the kids. What about forgiveness? What about 23 years of marriage? What about them? You threw them away the first time you kissed him. I hung up and turned off my phone. Outside, it was starting to rain, and I stood at my living room window, watching the water run down the glass. 23 years of marriage, over. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 2 weeks later, Marta made one last desperate play to salvage something from the wreckage of her life. I was at work when Trent called, his voice tight with anger. Dave, you need to get home, now. What's wrong? Marta and Greg are at your house. Leela's watching from across the street, but they've been inside for 20 minutes. My blood ran cold. Inside? How did they get inside? Probably her key. Look, I'm 10 minutes away, but you should call the cops. I was already grabbing my jacket. On my way. The drive home was the longest 15 minutes of my life. What were they doing in my house? Looking for evidence to destroy? Trying to find something to use against me? I pulled into my driveway behind Greg's Porsche. The front door was standing open, and I could hear voices from inside. Angry voices. Told you this was a stupid idea, Greg was saying as I walked through the door. Shut up, Marta snapped. Just find the files. He has to have copies somewhere. They were in my home office, going through my filing cabinets. Papers were scattered everywhere, and my computer was on, password screen glowing. Looking for something? I asked. They both spun around. Marta looked terrible, pale, thin, with dark circles under her eyes. Greg looked like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. David? Marta tried to smile, but it came out as more of a grimace. We were just breaking and entering, going through my private files, attempting to access my computer. I pulled out my phone. Should I call the police now, or do you want to explain what you're doing first? We need those files, Greg said, stepping forward. The photos, the surveillance reports. You're destroying our lives with lies. Lies? I laughed. Greg, I have video of you two in bed together. What part of that is a lie? Nunga. His face flushed red. You had no right to spy on us. Nunga. I had every right to investigate my wife's behavior. What I didn't have the right to do was break into someone's house and rifle through their belongings. I held up my phone. Which is exactly what you're doing right now. Nunga. Marta moved closer, and for a moment she looked like the woman I'd married. Vulnerable, desperate, human. Nunga. Please, David. I know I hurt you, but this has gone too far. I lost my job. Greg lost his business. We're facing criminal charges. Isn't that enough? Enough? The word came out harsher than I'd intended. Marta, you didn't just cheat on me. You humiliated me. You made me feel crazy and paranoid and worthless for months while you were screwing another man. You stole from your own company to fund your affair. You tried to forge my signature to steal from our bank account. And now you're in my house, going through my private files, asking if I think you've been punished enough. I made mistakes. You made choices. Every single time, you chose him over me. You chose deception over honesty. You chose your own pleasure over your family's well-being. I shook my head. So no, I don't think it's enough. I think you're getting exactly what you deserve. Greg stepped between us, his face ugly with rage. You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so much better than us? You're pathetic. A boring, passionless accountant who couldn't keep his wife satisfied. And something inside me snapped. I'd spent months being the reasonable one, the mature one, the victim who took the high road. But standing in my violated home office, listening to the man who'd destroyed my marriage call me pathetic, I'd had enough of being reasonable. You're right, Greg, I said calmly. I am boring. I am passionless. I'm the kind of guy who pays his bills on time and remembers anniversaries and never cheats on his wife. I stepped closer. But you know what I'm also good at? Details, documentation, following the money. His expression shifted slightly. See, while you two were playing house with stolen company funds, I was doing what boring accountants do. I was adding up numbers, hotel bills, restaurant charges, that weekend in Chicago, the jewelry you bought her with the corporate credit card. I smiled. $63,000, Greg. That's how much you two stole from your own company to fund your affair. Marta went white. We didn't steal anything. Personal expenses charged to business accounts, falsified expense reports, unauthorized use of company funds. I counted off on my fingers. The IRS is very interested in your creative bookkeeping methods. You son of a bitch, Greg snarled. You turned us in. I reported financial irregularities that I discovered during my investigation. What the IRS does with that information is up to them. Greg lunged at me, but 20 years of marriage to Marta had taught me to duck when someone was swinging at my head. He stumbled past me and crashed into my filing cabinet. That's assault, I said pleasantly. Trent, did you get that on video? Trent stepped into the doorway, holding his phone. Every second of it, along with the breaking and entering, the attempted theft, and the threats. Behind him were two uniformed police officers. Mr. Monroe, the first officer said. We got a call about a break-in? That's right. These two people entered my home without permission and were going through my private files when I arrived. The next hour was a blur of police reports and statements. Marta and Greg were arrested for breaking and entering, attempted theft, and violation of their bail conditions from the earlier fraud charges. As they were led away in handcuffs, Marta looked back at me one last time. I loved you, she said. For what it's worth, I did love you. I know, I replied. But you loved yourself more. 3 months later, I was standing in my backyard again. But this time the gathering was very different. Amelia had organized a small celebration. The divorce was final. The house was officially mine. And I'd just received word that Marta and Greg had both pled guilty to embezzlement charges. Trent was manning the grill. Lila was telling war stories from her journalism days. And Amelia was mixing drinks with the skill of someone who'd spent the summer working in restaurants. Even my son Ross had driven down from college for the occasion. So what's the sentence? Ross asked. He looked like me, but had inherited his mother's charm, which he used for good instead of evil. Marta got 18 months probation and community service, I said. Greg got 2 years probation and a hefty fine. Both of them are banned from working in marketing or advertising in Minnesota. That's it? Amelia looked disappointed. That's enough, I said. Prison wouldn't have made me feel better, and it wouldn't have undone what they did. But they'll spend the next few years rebuilding their lives from scratch, and everyone in their professional circle knows exactly who they are now. What about the divorce settlement? Lila asked. I grinned. I got the house, the retirement accounts, and most of the investments. Marta gets to keep her car and her personal belongings. Turns out adultery and embezzlement don't look good to family court judges. Trent raised his beer. To David Monroe, who proved that nice guys don't always finish last. Sometimes they just finish more thoroughly. I'll drink to that, I said. As the evening wound down, I found myself thinking about the past few months. The pain of discovering the affair. The anger of being betrayed. The satisfaction of watching Marta's carefully constructed world collapse around her. But mostly, I thought about freedom. Freedom from walking on eggshells, from wondering if I was imagining problems, from being married to someone who saw me as an obstacle to her happiness, rather than a partner in life. Any regrets? Amelia asked. She was helping me clean up while the others continued talking on the porch. About the marriage ending? No. About the way it ended? I considered this. I probably could have handled some of it differently. Been less vindictive, maybe. She humiliated you for months, Dad. She stole money. She broke into our house. You just made sure everyone knew the truth about who she really was. I suppose. Besides, Amelia grinned. The look on Greg's face when those photos showed up at the party was priceless. I've never seen someone go that pale that fast. We laughed together, and I realized this was something I'd missed during the last years of my marriage. Easy laughter with my children. Conversations that didn't feel like navigating a minefield. My phone buzzed with a text message. Unknown number. David, this is Marta. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm getting help. Therapy. I'm trying to understand why I made the choices I made. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Really sorry. For all of it. I showed the text to Amelia, who read it and shrugged. What are you going to do? Nothing, I said, deleting the message. She's not my problem anymore. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat on my back porch with a beer and looked up at the stars. The house felt different now. Bigger somehow, more peaceful. It was mine in a way it hadn't been for years. Tomorrow I'd go back to work, back to spreadsheets and tax returns, and the quiet satisfaction of making numbers add up correctly. But tonight, I was just a man who'd survived his wife's betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. My phone rang. Trent, how you feeling, champ? Good, I said, and meant it. Really good. Any thoughts about dating again? Getting back out there? I laughed. Slow down there, Cupid. I just got divorced 3 hours ago. Fair enough. But when you're ready, I know some people. Good people. The kind who don't steal money or sleep around or call their husbands sexually inadequate over breakfast. Set the bar high, why don't you? After what you've been through? Yeah, I'm setting the bar very high. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet darkness for a while longer, thinking about second chances and new beginnings and the difference between being alone and being lonely. For the first time in years, I was alone but not lonely. I had my children, my friends, my work, and most importantly, I had my self-respect back. Marta had wanted to toast the one who paid the bills but never became good in bed. Well, here's to the one who paid the bills, kept his dignity, and proved that sometimes the boring guy wins in